All right, in this video, we're going to look at project one, especially for those who did not complete in class. Let's start with clicking this link. And I'm going to click the top left so I can quickly select everything. I'm going to copy and then I'm going to paste it into my Excel file, which I opened already right here on the right hand side. And immediately after you copied, you should choose match destination formatting to get rid of any of the weird formats that you see. And then next, you can close the Google Sheets. And then in Excel, I'm going to select all these columns. If you copied everything, it'll be column A to column K. And then we're going to do insert table. And I'm going to choose table so that I have a name for my table, and make sure that you check my table has headers. Click OK. And now we have this table, and I'm going to name this sheet my data. Everything will come from this data. Next step, we're going to complete our screen. So this screen says task 1, and that's exactly what I just did. Copy the data set, paste into Excel file, make it a table, and save your file. So don't forget to save your file. And then click yes right here, hit submit, and you get 1 point from task 1. Feel free to pause this video at any time or go back if you need to see what I did. Everything is done on a Mac, so if you're working on a PC, the interface might be slightly different, but the selections and the options should be very similar. Let's click next to go to task number 2. Task number 2 asks you to compare the variable letter grade from the two sections. Let's start with clicking anywhere in your data tab. And then you go to insert and then tables, pivot table. And then notice that the table range is table 1, which is the table that I created earlier. And then I recommend you use new worksheet instead of existing ones because we have a lot of things going on in this project. Click OK. And now it's going to take you to a new sheet, sheet 2. I recommend that you rename this to the task. This time, task number 2. And then usually I just drag it to the right. So this is the task 2. It's always a good idea to rename your tabs so you keep your work organized. All right, so we have this pivot table, empty pivot table, and we're going to create, based on what you see, a relative frequency table for the letter grades. Since it's letter grade, we're going to drag the letter grade as you can see in the rows. So drag the letter grade from the pivot table fields to rows, and then drag it to values. Drag it to values. Let's move this a little bit to the left so you can see my interface. And then I recommend that you also drag the section to filters. This will allow you to filter through the two different sections and display your results accordingly. Since the letter grades are qualitative, by default, Excel will display as counts. As you can see right here, these are count of letter grades, and they are the frequencies. The question is asking you for relative frequency, so we need to change that. In order to change that, you just need to click any of them, right click, and then go to show values as, and then you're going to select % of grand total. And this will change all the frequency counts to relative frequency. Next thing we need to do will be the next thing we need to do is grouping. If you check out the table, A and A minus are together, all the B's are together, all the C's are together, and all the D's are together. So we need to group them. Let's group them. I'm going to select. So notice that my section is still all of them. I did not filter anything. It shows all the possible letter grades. It's better if you do it, if you group right now, because you see all the letter grades, group them. It will make your life a little bit easier. Select A and A minus. You could also select just A and A minus. It's up to you whether or not you want to select the %. And then you right click, choose group. And now these two will be grouped. I can give a new name for group 1. So go to where it says group 1. You could change right here by typing A minus. You could also change it in the formula bar right here to whatever you want. since we will create a pie chart, it's recommended that you rename your groups. And then we're going to choose all the Bs and then group them the same way. Select all the Bs and then group. Make sure you select all of them. And now I have a group 2. I'm going to rename this B plus, B, and B minus. Next, I'm going to group all the Cs. Let's select all the Cs. There are 3 of them. Right click, group. And I'm going to rename my group 3 C plus, C, C minus. For the D and F, we don't need to group because there's only one item in those 2 groups. I just need to change the group name for D, maybe change it to D plus and D, because that's one other possible grade. F is just F, so we don't need to do anything. Next thing to do is close all the groups. So click the minus sign to close each group. And then there's a blank. I don't want the blank, so you just click the drop down menu next to row labels, and then you uncheck blank. And then you close this window. Now we have all the rows that we need and the relative frequencies. It's probably better if you change the label for this column to relative frequencies. Let's make this a little bit bigger. It's probably harder for you to see. I'm sorry about that. So this is what I have right now, and this is including both sections. To find out the relative frequencies for each section, you're going to click this drop-down menu for the filter, uncheck number 2. And now I have the relative frequencies for section 1. So let's come back to the screen. We just need to enter these numbers. When you enter, make sure you follow the directions from the screen. These has to be relative frequencies, percents, rounded to the nearest hundredth. So 40.74%. Don't forget the percent symbol. And then for B, 40.74% as well. For C, 11.11%. For D, 3.70%. And then for F, 3.70%. And you can click submit, and as you can see, these are all correct. And then for the section 2, you just need to uncheck 1 and then check 2. And then you have your frequencies right there. So I'm not going to enter them again. You just need to enter them based on your Excel work. To create a pie chart, you select the body of your table. When I say the body of the table, I'm talking about the parts that are not highlighted in any color. These are the body of the color. The table. These are white background. There's no other colors. Then this is the body of the table. So you select that. Notice that I did not select grand total. You go to insert and then find out the pie chart. And then you could select any of these. I usually just do the basic ones. 2D pie chart. Let's make this window a little bit bigger. So this is the pie chart for section 1. And notice that there are legends on the right hand side. And I do want you to display the percentages. So what you do is you right click the pie, and then there's an option called add data labels. Click on that. And now the pie is slightly smaller, but you have the percentage around it. The last thing you will do will be changing the title. Since this is section 1, I'm going to change it to section 1. Or you could do section 1 letter grades, right? Something like that. And then you take a screenshot of this, upload into this box. And you do the same thing for section 2. All right. The third question on the screen is asking you to compare the letter grades of the 2 sections. You just need to write a little paragraph stating which section performed better based on the pie chart and the table, and also why. So for some reasoning included in the box, and then you should be able to get the points. And that's task number 2. Let's move on to task number 3. Task number 3 is very similar to task number 2. Instead of using course letter grades, you're going to use course final grade, the numerical one, to compare the performance of those 2 sections. Let's look at the table first. According to the table, you need to have the course final grade in your rows and in the values as relative frequency for each section. And we need to group the course final grade into intervals of 10. It starts at 0 and it goes up by 10 every single time. Let's come to Excel. You're going to go back to the Data tab, click anywhere in the table, and then click Insert Tables, Pivot Table. New worksheet is recommended, and you click OK. I'm going to name this Task 3. And I'll drag it all the way to the right. So we have task number 3. And then on the right hand side, if you don't see the pivot table fields, just right click anywhere in your table. There should be an option called Show Field List. What I'm seeing right now is Hide Field List because I have it displayed on the right hand side already. Now let's drag. So definitely need section. Section is always going to go to the filters. And then we're interested in course final grade. So drag this into rows and values. And let me show you what my interface looks like. So I have these two sections filled. Under filter, it's section. Under rows, it's course final grade. Under values, it's also course final grade. Because my course final grade is numerical, by default, Excel uses this sum, which is not what we want. So the first thing to do is I would definitely right click any of these values in the second column. And then I'm going to change it to summarized values by count. Do that. And then you should see a bunch of ones. These are the frequencies. We want relative frequencies. You want to make sure that your original number are frequencies. To convert them to relative frequencies, right click any of them and then go to show values as, and then you're going to choose % of grand total. And now we have these relative frequencies. Keep in mind that right now this is for both sections, but it's okay. We can always change the filter later. Next, we're going to do the first column, these intervals, and we need to group these. Since it's numerical, we don't need to manually group these numbers together like what we did with the letter grades. We can ask Excel to do it for us. So all you need to do is just right click any of these row and then select group. Once you do that, this window will pop out. In the first box where it says starting at, you're going to enter 0. This is because our first interval starts at 0. And then ending at, we don't care, so just leave that. And then we have this third box which says by. This number suggests how wide your interval should be. If you check out these intervals, it's going up by 10, right? At the 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. So it's go by 10. You leave it like 10. And then you click OK. And now we have these intervals. Notice that some of the intervals are missing. To display all the intervals, right click any of the intervals that you have. And then you go to Field Settings. And then you're going to check this item, Show Items with No Data. If you are on PC, this option is under Layout and Print. So you go to that tab and you should be able to see this item. And then check that, click OK. And now you should see all the intervals that are available. Next, let's get rid of the two intervals that we don't need. Less than 0 and greater than 100. No one's going to get those scores. So let's click the drop-down menu next to row label. And again, I forgot to make it bigger. Click the drop-down menu next to the row label. And then uncheck less than 0. Uncheck greater than 0. And then close it. And now we have all the intervals we need. And we have the relative frequencies. I'm going to change these to relative frequencies. To enter the numbers in this table, make sure that you filter through because we have two sections. To filter through, make sure that you have section under filters and then you click the drop down menu right here, uncheck number 2, and this will give me only the relative frequencies of section 1. And then you just need to enter them in the first column right here. Make sure you include both the numbers and the percent symbol. Keep 2 decimal places, just like what you see in Excel. And then you do the same thing for section 2. So I'm not going to show section 2 because I do want you to do it yourself and then enter the numbers. And then you submit. The second question is asking you to create a histogram for each section's course final grade. And then you do need to show the intervals that are 0%, which we did right here. And to create a histogram, we're going to fake it like we did in class. So what you do is first select the body of the table. Just like before, I'm referring to the white part of your table, the ones that are not highlighted. And then you go to insert. Do not select this histogram. This is for if you have the original numbers. We're going to look at this one, column chart. Select the first one right here and then do the 2D column. The first one is fine. And this will give us a fake histogram. Technically, it's a bar chart, but we can modify it to make it look like a histogram. So how do you modify it? First, double click any of the blue bars. If you did it correctly, you should see a format data series on the right hand side. If you don't see it, it's fine. You can always right click and then there's format data series. And then once you go there, make sure that it's under this histogram tab right here. It will give you some series options. The series option, we're going to focus on the gap width. For a histogram, the bars are all adjacent to each other because it's a numerical. The horizontal axis should be continuous. So all we need to do is just decrease the gap width. I like to keep a little bit of the gap, like 2% or 3%, so that you could see the edge a little bit. And this is my histogram. This is my histogram. You could add the percent to the graph by right-clicking and then do add data labels if you prefer. And then just take a screenshot. Before you do that, make sure you change the title to something like section 1. And I will probably delete this legend as well. We don't really need that. And this is the histogram of section 1. And then you do the same thing for section 2. Upload those 2 images into the second box right here. The third question, write a paragraph comparing the course grades based on the table and the histogram. So you need to state which section performed better because, and then explain the reasoning. It's very similar to the previous one. And you should get the same conclusion, which section did better. And that's task number 3. Let's move on to task number 4. Task number 4 asks you to investigate the relationship between attendance times and letter grades. And I do have very detailed directions on the screen. So let's follow the directions. You're going to create a pivot bar chart by following the steps below. First step, click anywhere in your original data table. So let's go back to Excel. Click anywhere in the original data table. And then we're going to, let me take a break first. All right, welcome back. So go to the table and then you're going to click anywhere in the table. Go to insert and then you're going to find out pivot chart. So it's right here. Click on that and then make sure that it's also new worksheet and then click OK. I'm going to name this task number 4. And I'm going to drag it all the way to the right to keep my tabs all organized. And then just follow the directions, right? Follow the directions. So step number 2, drag the field letter grade into rows or axis. It depends on which one you select. Right now, I'm selecting the chart. So you're going to close to the pivot chart fields on the right-hand side. And notice that these are the regions. The name is kind of slightly different from a pivot table. If you go to pivot table, it's going to show you columns and rows for these two. If you go to the chart, it's going to show legend and axis. I'm going to use the chart and then follow the direction, drag the letter grade into rows. So, or axis, right? Axis. So it's right here. Drag the letter grades right here. And then you're going to drag section into columns. So section into columns or legends. So right here, that'll be the section. And then we're going to drag attendance into values. So find out attendance, drag into values. And then you should see something like this. So you should see both the table and the bar chart. If you don't see the bar chart, it's probably because you selected pivot table instead of pivot chart, which is fine. You can always select the body of the table and then go to insert and then go to the 2D column, select the chart. You can always do that in that way. Next step, let's check out the next step. We're going to summarize attendance values as averages rounded to 1 decimal place. So it's referring to these numbers that you see right here. You could click any of them and then right click, summarize values by average. And now all these numbers are averages. These are the average attendance for each letter grade, in each section. And then select all of them rounded to 1 decimal place. So I'm going to select all of them and go to the Home tab. Let's make it a little bit bigger. I always forgot that. And then use these 2 buttons to round. Just need to round it to 1 decimal place. And that's it. And then step number 3, we're going to group the row labels. Similar to task number 2, we have these letter grades, so we just need to group them. I'm going to first uncheck the blank because I don't need that. I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to group them. So select A and A minus and group them. And then select, I think Excel automatically groups the rest for me because I did something similar in the past. If it didn't, then you just have to group yourself manually. Or if it grouped incorrectly, make sure that you ungroup and redo the process. So Excel understands me actually. As you can see, it automatically finished the rest of the grouping, which is very nice. And then some of you might also see that they are actually not ordered in the desired way. I'm going to change this to A and A minus, and then change this to B plus, B and B minus, and change the group C to C plus, C, C minus. And you can select this option where here it says ascending to order your groups. So I just need to close all the groups, and I'm going to choose ascending. And now all the groups are ordered based on the letter grades, which is much better in my opinion. And then you could kind of see that the bar chart is updated as well. You have your A minus, you have your B's, your C's, your D's, and your F's. So this should be something that you see. And then you also have the legends showing that blue is section 1, orange is section 2. So it looks like the numbers here are all messed up, which is fine. I'm just going to select all of them again and then change the decimal places. Change it to 1 decimal place, just like what we did before. And then for the graph here, if you want to add the frequency at the average, you could do that as well by right clicking on the graph and then add data labels. So you have the labels in your graph as well. And this will be the graph that you're going to take a screenshot of and then upload to this box right here. And then you should be able to answer these 2 questions. So I'm not going to give you the answers. And that's task number 4. Let's move on to task number 5, which is the very last task. And I think most people are working on this one when the class was over. So for task number 5, this is related to descriptive measures. We're going to calculate measures of center, variation, and relative standings, and create box plots. Let's start with the steps. So we're going to compute the descriptive numerical measures of the section course final grades by following the steps below. So this is the variable that we're interested in, the course final grade. That's the column. And for this one, it's recommended that you split this column, course final grade, into 2 of them based on the section numbers. So we just have to do it manually. In my opinion, it's a little bit better than dealing with the pivot table. So I'm going to first start a new sheet, and I'm going to call this task 5. So notice that this time we're not doing pivot tables. We're just creating a brand new spreadsheet by clicking the plus sign. And then let's go back to the data set, and then we're going to select all the course grade that's related to section 1. So for section 1, it's from the 2nd row all the way to the 28th row. So I'm going to select these. The first number is 81 point something, and the last number should be 80. This will be section 1. So just copy these numbers and then you go to task number 5. Let's make it bigger. This time I finally remembered. And then under column A, I'm going to name this section 1. And then below that, you paste all the numbers that you just copied. I'm going to get rid of the formatting by choose match destination formatting. So this will be section 1. And we're going to do the same thing for section 2. Name it section 2. Go back to your data table and then copy the rest of the score. Section 1 score should be selected, so it's very easy to see where you start. You start from row number 29 and go all the way to the end of which is row 58. So these are the scores for section 2. You select these, copy them, and then go to task 5, paste under section 2, and I'm going to get rid of the formatting by choosing paste values or match destination format. And now we have these two columns. They are the course final grades for those two sections, but in different columns. Next, we're going to perform the corresponding calculations in Excel, and we're going to round all the statistic to the nearest hundredth, meaning that keeping 2 decimal places. And this table tells you what you need to calculate. So first thing to do, I'm going to organize my work. I usually leave like a column in between and make it a little bit narrower. And then I'm going to paste my section title here and then put my statistic in this column, which is column D. So let's copy these first. We have minimum, we have maximum, we have mean, we have median, range, standard deviation, Q1, Q3, IQR, lower fence, and then upper fence, and then outliers. So these are the labels from the table. You could just copy them in your Excel so that you don't have to look at the screen anymore. You could just look at your Excel file when you calculate these things. Next, we're going to perform the calculation. Before you do the calculation, there's one thing I recommend you to do, which is define names. As you can see, we need to calculate different kind of statistics, and they use the same list of numbers again and again. If this is the situation, it's always recommended that you can define your numbers. So I'm going to select all the section 1 scores, right? These. It's from row 2 to row 28 in the column A. And I'm going to right click and you're going to go to define name. Find out that option, click on that, and you're going to give it a name. I'm going to give it a name such as section 1 so that it's easy for me to refer to in the future. Notice that I did not select the title. Do not select the title, okay? Just select the numbers, not the title. And we're going to do the same thing for section 2, starting with row number 2 in column B, and then go all the way to the end, which is row 31. Select all these, right click, define name. I'm going to name this section 2, and click OK. And now we are ready to calculate these. For a demonstration purpose, I will only do section 1, and I'm going to display formulas in column G. So let's set that up first. The command for showing formula is formula text, and then you're going to select the cell that you want to display your formula and then hit enter. I'm going to change it to green. Right now it's showing me an error message. This is because it's empty. I'm going to drag it all the way to the bottom. And now I have all the formulas ready. I will only do section 1, so make sure that you follow along and then you practice by doing the same thing for section 2. First is minimum. Start with the equal sign and then you're going to use the command for minimum. It's just minimum. And then you're going to select all the numbers. So if you did not define names, just drag all the numbers. If you did define name, like me, you just need to type the name of the range. In my case, section 1. And then you hit enter, and that's it. This is the formula that I use. And you're going to do the same thing for section 2. You could pause this video while you do section 2. To check if your number is correct, make sure that you follow the rounding requirement. It says round all the statistic to the nearest hundredth. So you're going to keep 2 decimal places. You could do it at the very end, or you could do it right now. So if I do it right now, I'm just going to select this, click this button, and then round it to 2 decimal places. Notice that it's 4.13. And if you want to see if it's right, enter into the box on the screen 4.13, and then you hit submit, and notice that it is correct. If it's not correct, go back and change, see where you made your mistake. Next is max. For max, it's just max. And then I'm going to type the name of the section, which is section 1. And then for mean, it's average. For median, it's median. For range, it's maximum minus minimum. We already calculate the maximum and the minimum, so you don't have to use the command again. You just need to use the cells. So in this case, equals, click the maximum, and then minus the minimum, and then hit enter. Next, standard deviation. So this one will be stdev.s because this is just what we have. And then we're going to select the name, section 1, and then hit enter. And then we have Q1. So Q1 is just going to be quartile. You could do quartile or quartile.exe. I'm going to do quartile.exe. And then I'm going to select the section name. And we're doing first quartile, so it'll be 1. Let me show you the formulas on the right hand side. So you can see it's quartile.exe and then section 1, comma 1. Q3 is very similar. So it'll be quartile.exe and it's section 1, the third quartile. IQR, according to the definition, is the difference between Q1 and Q3. So you're going to do equals Q3, click Q3, minus Q1. Lower fence, following the formula, lower fence is Q1. So click Q1, minus 1.5 times IQR. Click IQR. So notice that I cannot click. Sometimes that could happen. If that's the case, just enter the cell location. In this case, it's E10. So times E10. And that will help you, that will let you select this one, and then you hit enter. For the upper, it will be Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR. And then for the outliers, outliers are defined as numbers that are not between these two numbers, the lower fence and the upper fence. You can totally just eyeballing the original list of numbers by sort them or something like that to see if there are any numbers that are not between these two, or you could use conditional formatting. I recommend you try conditional formatting just for extra practice. So how do you do conditional formatting? You select the numbers that you want to format. In this case, will be row number 2 to row number 20A in column A, because these are the section 1 grades, and we're going to do conditional formatting. Make sure it's under Home tab, and then you go to conditional formatting, click highlight cells rules, and then we're going to do more rules. And once you open that, check out where it says greater than. You're going to click the drop down menu to choose not between. And then we have 2 boxes next to it. In these 2 boxes, you just need to enter the lower fence and the upper fence. I recommend using cell reference. Use your cursor, click in the first box, and then click your lower fence, which is E11, and then go to the second box, do the same thing, click your upper fence, E12. If you're on the Mac, the format is already preset. This preset format, I think it looks pretty good. It's light red filled with dark red text. It looks good, but you could always change this by doing the drop down menu if you want. If you're on PC, you have to click the format in order to set up a format. And I do recommend that you just fill it in with a color like red, and then you click OK. And now notice that this number is highlighted in the desired format, and that means this is the outlier. So when I go to this cell, I could just say equals this highlighted number, and it's going to show you the number. So I don't even need to copy. And that will be all the statistics that we have for section 1. And then make sure you enter them in the table by rounding to 2 decimal places, and then check see if it's right. So I'm not going to round it for you because I want you to do it yourself. And then you're going to practice with section 2. See if you could get all of them right. And then for number 3, you're going to create a box plot. So how do you create a box plot? You select both column A and column B, and then you go to insert, and then you go to histogram and box and whisker, And this is how you could create a box plot. So notice that this is what the side-by-side box plot is going to look like. And as you can see, there are 2 outliers, 1 outlier for each section. And also on this graph, if you want to display the 5-number summary, you could right-click the box and then choose Add Data Labels. You could also change the position, of course. I think if you just double-click on this, there is a label position. I could put it on the left-hand side instead because, these 2 boxes are just so close to each other. Some of you might notice that the decimal places are 2 minutes. So you could click the number format right here. I could change this to numbers and then change the decimal places to 2 decimal places in that way, so it looks a little bit better. And you do the same thing for the other one. And you could change the title to something like box plot, and then you can compare them. So take a screenshot of this, upload into this box. The last question just asking you to compare the performance. Now we have numerical values. You could look at the mean, the median, the standard deviation, or you could also look at the box plot and then write a paragraph comparing the performance of these 2. And that's task number 5. And once you finish that, make sure you check the total score right here. If you see 26 out of 26, that just means you did everything you can at this point. I will manually grade all these text and picture submission problems to make sure that you actually got it right. If you didn't get it right, you will get points off. So that means what you see right now might not be your actual score, but I do hope that everyone will get as high as 26 for your project 1. And thanks for watching. If you still have questions after watching this video, feel free to email me, sign up for my office hours, or you could talk to me in class. And that's it. Thanks for watching.